Hi, I'm Dr. Angela McBurdy of DoctorFlute.com, and today for Flute Tips, we're going to talk about tapers. Learning how to taper can be a really annoying thing to work on, but it's really beautiful when you learn how to do them. I've had students that pick it up really fast and get it and understand what to do physically, mechanically, but then I've had others that just work on it for a long time and it just seems like it's a really hard thing to do, and then all of a sudden one day they start doing it. So tapering, what do I mean by that? How you end your notes. I've talked about tapers before, but let me just go into them with a little more depth. So how we end notes, we always want them to be beautiful. We don't want to just stop and go. That's just like somebody chopped off the end, right? You just lopped off a piece of bread here and we didn't let the bread rise to a nice taper at the end of the bread, right? And it looks like a nice beautiful loaf. It's just cut into. We don't want to do that with our notes. We want them, no matter how long or how short, they need to have an ending, a little tail stuck on, maybe, if that's how you want to think about it, because that's what I do. I think that there's just a little tail, and I think of maybe some of those candy makers where they are maybe it's a solid type of candy and the machine that they lay it down in lifts up and it creates a little top to it, but as this machine lifts away you can see it's pulling, going from a big glob down here to a little tiny thread, maybe all the way up to the top as it moves away and moves to another one. So it's this little bit of a pull at the end of your note that makes us have just a beautiful ending. And we have to learn to do them, whether it's a short note or whether it's a long note. I really like working on long tones, and when I'm working on long tones, I can do long tapers. If I'm working on short tones, such as what's in the Moyse short tone book, Moyse's De la Sonorite, there's a short tone exercise in there that I like to use for really short tapers that still have resonance. So let me briefly explain what I mean by how you taper. Really, all the mechanics is that while you're playing the note, still having enough support, still having enough air, because you don't want to do tapers when you're out of air, because then you're just going to taper automatically because you're running out of air, and it's not usually a good taper because you're not keeping that support. So always, if you're doing long tones and working on tapers, taper before you run out of air. So if I'm doing I tapered that note before I was done with my air. If you wait till the end, you're not really tapering. It's just automatically happening. All right, so I don't know if you could see what I was doing there, but the mechanics are, while you're playing, you bring your jaw up and out. Now, technically, you should try to keep that vibrato going all the way through. At some point, it doesn't make sense to keep the vibrato going, and it just needs to taper out, so you can let the vibrato go. But keep it going as long as you can. So I'll do that again. So if I kept that movement going, my jaw comes right out too far. So I hope that you can see I'm moving it. It's going out. Now if I turn a little bit sideways, let me do that again. Do you see that movement? Moving it out. Now, when you first begin, I guarantee you're not moving your jaw enough. That always happens. I don't think there's anybody that I taught tapers to that moved their jaw too much at the first. So I would practice going all the way out with your jaw. Until you've got nothing left. And when you feel comfortable with that movement, then start saying, I'm going to go up and out at the same time. Now, I've seen, I don't know if anyone's ever discussed it like this, but I've seen when I've just really watched someone do a taper closely enough that I can see what's going on. Sometimes their jaw moves to the side a little bit, or the lip moves to the side, and it really gives it a nice twist. It just closes that note off really nicely. So I moved to this side a little bit. You just need to experiment with that and use a mirror. A mirror can really be helpful in seeing what you're doing, and is the reason why you're not getting the taper, because you can't even see your jaw move. Oftentimes, what we think is a lot in outside looking in, not much at all. Now, we have to do that same thing. That's when we get the luxury. So what I'm doing right now is the luxury of having a long taper and just letting that note gloriously fade into nothingness. But what if I have to do a short note, like in this Hindemith Sonata here? So right there, it's an eighth note, and I need to taper it. I need it to end, okay? And maybe when we're talking about really short notes, we're not really saying tapers. I don't know any other name to say it, but it's note endings. But this is an eighth note ending. So there, I just chopped it. That was the slice. I just sliced it off. Now, can I do a taper? Did you hear how much nicer those endings were? So I'm really doing the same thing, but I'm doing it with a faster movement and maybe not all the way. If I'm tapering out into nothingness over a long period of time, I can let that note just fade away. With this, I'm still moving my jaw up, and it's still moving up and out. It's just really, really quick. Okay, but I'm also using support. If you don't have support all the way through this taper, it's not going to work for you. It's not going to sound great, and you're going to be frustrated. But if you keep that pressure up, then that allows your embouchure to be really flexible and do what it needs to do. Once your support goes away, so that air pressure inside, once that's not there, you have to rely everything on here and your throat, and that's when it starts falling apart. So practice your tapers, both long ones. I would work on long ones first. Do all long tones and just taper that note. Just keep it going until you really feel comfortable with that. And when you feel like you're tapering, then work on some short tones and start doing those in a quick succession. So I'm just going to do and that would be like quarter notes, perhaps. I would work on them even with short notes, eighth notes maybe. And that's what the Moyse short tones exercises with triplets. But you do them in 4 different ways, so it's not really triplets, but in any case, you can look at that exercise. It's really, really good. It's where I learned how to do short tone and short tapers. It really helped, and also to get resonance on short notes as well. So I think that exercise has got a wealth of possibilities of how you work on it. So work on your tapers. Use your jaw. It's a mechanical thing, not a throat thing. Don't use your throat. I used to think it was all in the throat, but it's not. It's keeping that support, and it's moving your jaw up and out, maybe up and out and a little bit to the side. But experiment with that and see what works for you. It'll make your music be so much more beautiful when you end it in that beautiful way. So have fun working on your tapers.